Alright boys, so Gareth has done his 33-man squad today. I'm going to show you my 26 and my starting 11. Let's get into it. What I want you to do is any differences, any players you think I've missed out of the 26 that you would have put in, let me know down in the comments. If you want to put your starting 11 down below, that would be class. I want just an idea of how far I am away from the general football fan. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let's get into England squad for the 2021 Euros. Alright boys, so we're working at like a 4-2-3-1. Obviously 3 goalkeepers. I'm then going to go through 2 players for each position. And then I will have my 3 wild cards, the 3 extra picks. And I've kind of put them as wild cards and reasons for having them in. Alright, so we're going to start with the goalkeepers. My number 1, narrowly, and I mean narrowly, I think it's very much the best of a very, very average bunch, is Nick Pope. I haven't got really an issue who he plays out with the 3. If anything, 3 or 4 months ago, I was pushing towards Dean Henderson, but he's been quite poor since he's been put in as number 1 keeper for Manchester United. He's kind of blown his chance, I think. I do think it's a toss-up probably between Pickford and Pope. I would just go Pope because he's a better keeper. He's a better shot stopper. I'm not sure how many times we'd really get the quality out of Pickford's kicks compared to what Pope can do in terms of coming out for crosses, shot stopping generally. I think the pros for Pope are better than the pros for Pickford. So I'm going Pope 1, Pickford as number 2, Henderson number 3. Now, moving across to right back, interesting. We've got so many. What have we got? We've got Trent, Wambasaka, we've got Reece James, Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier. 5 outstanding fullbacks. We need more centre-halves to come in because the next move we're going to look at is centre-halves. Obviously, we've got issues there in his lack of depth. Right back, we've not got that problem. Now, my first choice right back generally would be Kyle Walker. I think he's had a decent season. Good going forward, good defensively. So he would be my first pick with Trent Alexander-Arnold as the number 2 as the cover. Now, I think there's going to be opportunities to play Trent. I think maybe in games against Croatia and Scotland, not because they're weaker opposition, but because they're more likely to play a low block. So his quality crossing from sort of like 30, 40 yards out will probably be becoming more useful than what Kyle Walker can offer with his pace. So I would go with Trent. Kieran Trippier, I think, has been unfortunate because he has had a really good season at Atletico, a really good season. But I just think those 2 right backs, Kyle Walker for his overall play, and Trent going forward just probably beats Kieran Trippier to it. Now, moving over to left back, probably the easiest 2 decisions you have to make, really, in terms of a duo. It's Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw. With me probably putting Luke Shaw just ahead of Ben Chilwell, just more as an all-rounder. He's probably better defensively. I also think the partnership that he's set up, Luke Shaw, with Harry Maguire and Marcus Rashford on that left-hand side, I think that would work better for England. I think there's probably going to be games where Ben Chilwell plays. I think if it's one of the group games and you find Ben Chilwell in the side instead of Luke Shaw, I wouldn't find that surprising at all. Okay, so there's the fullbacks done. Centre-halves, obviously the main 2 are John Stones and Harry Maguire. I think Gary Neville said a few months ago that he's probably the most important player in the squad. And now looking at there's a chance that he may be injured for it, he was probably right because of the pure lack of depth and lack of form of other centre-halves that have been playing for England in that position. I think his fitness is imperative for us to keep a 4-2-3-1. I think if he gets injured and he's out, I think Gareth will naturally revert back to a 3-5-2, which would be disappointing, or a 3-4-3 or whatever you want to call it. So John Stones and Harry Maguire are my first 2 picks. As I said, Harry Maguire on the left, John Stones on the right as well. So he's working with Kyle Walker, who he's used to. Harry Maguire working with Luke Shaw. I do think partnerships in tournament football is key. Players that are used to playing with each other. So I think that's important. Backups, the first one you're probably not going to agree with, but I'm going with Eric Dyer. Obviously, he's been inconsistent. Form not been great at all during the course of the season. However, the thing that stands him out apart, well, because we haven't had that many outstanding performances at centre-half this season, I just think because he's used to tournament football, he's had a lot of experience playing at centre-back, and when he's played for England, he hasn't generally played too bad. So he would be my more experienced choice. And then on the left-hand side, or the other side, my other backup option would be Tomorry. Now, he had a fantastic start of, was it the 2019-20 season, and then didn't play much after probably COVID hit, and then didn't play all the start of the season, got loaned out in January, really impressed at AC Milan, I think to the point where they're desperate to sign him for upwards of 30 million. I think having someone who is young, in form, alongside someone like Eric Dyer, who maybe not been in a form and experience, I think is a decent balance. So I would put Tomorry in there. So they're my 4 choice centre-halves. Now I have picked another centre-half as a wild card, but we'll talk about that at the end. Probably the most, not controversial, but those 4, I think after the first 2, I think there's maybe 6 players that you could potentially pick in those few slots, and not a lot of people would probably argue about the decisions that you've made. Tyrone Mings has missed out. He's not my wild card pick. I think generally he's been quite average this season. I think I would prefer to have Eric Dyer, who's played tournament football, alongside someone like Tomorry, who has been in form. So there's my back 4 with the backup players. Now moving into the midfield, we're going to do this based on, I'm pretty sure Henderson's fit. He's been training full for the last week or so. Has got a good, 3-4 weeks before the tournament kicks off. I think also that he's going to be a valuable part of the squad. Now, I've not got him in my starting 11, but as a backup, as a substitute to bring on, someone to have in and around training, the demands he has on his players. As captain of Liverpool, he's a leader. I think in a group, in a core, I think he would be an important part, even if he doesn't play every single game. So my two midfield choices would be Declan Rice, obvious as a 6, and I would go with Mason Mount as an 8. I think he played a little bit as an 8 under Frank Lampard, and I think he actually really impressed doing from a deeper position. He's not, I wouldn't say he's a natural goal getter. He does like to drop off. He works extremely hard. He can be disciplined if he wants to be, obviously playing under Thomas Tuchel as well, asking a lot of discipline and work off the ball. So I would be happy with him as an 8. He's quite, even though he's physically not the tallest and the strongest, he does put himself about a little bit, and I think he would be a decent number 8. So we've got Rice as a 6, Mount as an 8, backups Henderson as 1, and then we're going to go Calvin Phillips as the other. I think he's done okay. I'm not his biggest fan. I would just have him over James Ward-Prowse, because I just think James Ward-Prowse is decent in a lot of areas, but not amazing in one key thing. And I think as a holding midfield, just in case we lost a Rice, Calvin Phillips has gone and played that role regularly for England over the last course of the last 12 months or so. So I would go with Phillips in there as a backup with Henderson. So the middle, sort of like the 6 and the 8s, we're looking at Rice, Mount, Henderson and Phillips. I think that gives us a nice defensive structure in there, playing with a double pivot, but also having the option of a Mason Mount, who can maybe get forward a little bit more. Right, moving across to the right side, I don't think he's going to be a starter at all. I think he's even maybe potentially struggling to make the 26, and that is Jaden Sancho. Now, he's not impressed. I think it'll be well over a year probably since he's last played for England. He hadn't impressed during that little, maybe 2 or 3 meetings before COVID. He didn't impress that much, but his form since he's come back from injury at Dortmund has been sensational. Him on the right-hand side as a creator, as a playmaker would be good. Even obviously he's got the dribbling capabilities, but not like the other side where we've got sort of like Rashford's and Sterling's that generally rely on pace. I think him as a ball player, playmaker on that right-hand side. And as a backup to Sancho, I would go Mason Greenwood. Not great form up until around sort of like February, March time, but he's come into it. I also think, I've only picked 2 strikers. I also think having him coming off the bench as an impact on that right-hand side would maybe be better than putting a Danny Ings on up front. I do think when it comes to Gareth making his changes, he's not going to be taking off Harry Kane. He may go with a Dominic Calvert-Lewin to play up there with a Harry Kane. Do we need to have a Ollie Watkins, a Patrick Bamford, a Danny Ings, as I said? I don't think we necessarily do. So having a goal-getter on that right-hand side as an impact off the bench, I think would be a good idea. So Mason Greenwood would be my backup on the right. On the left, we've already spoken about Marcus Rashford. I think it's a nice balance. You've got that little partnership down that left-hand side with Maguire, Shaw and Rashford all playing with each other regularly at Manchester United. His just directness, pace, goal-getting compared to Sancho, who's a little bit more creative. I think that gives us a really nice balance with Raheem Sterling as a backup, free to maybe play on the right, play on the left. He's not had the greatest of seasons, but I do think he deserves a place in the squad. So there is my wide players. Number 10s. Now, this would have been pre-injury. This would have been Jack Grealish all day long. I am a massive fan of Jack Grealish. However, I do think just how it's worked over the last few months, Phil Foden has played so well. I think he's guaranteed to probably start ahead of him in the Euros under Gareth's squad. And just right now, if I had to pick one, it would be, and especially if I was playing with Mason Mount as an 8, I would probably go with Phil Foden as a 10. With Jack obviously as his backup now. Jack can obviously play. All of them can play. This is the best thing about it as well. Why substitutions in these areas, the 3 attacking areas, is in the right side, the left side, and the number 10. I think is going to be vital because all of them can pretty much play in different positions. Sancho's played all the way across the 3. Sterling's played in the 2 wide areas. Foden can play across the 3. Grealish could play across the 3 as well. So lots of options in there. And I do think that's where, if we need a game to change, I think swapping around those options would be brilliant. You've got the playmakers in Foden, the dribblers in Grealish, Sancho, the pace and directness maybe of a Sterling and a Rashford, the goal getter as well of Rashford and Greenwood. You've got so many options, and I think if things need to change, rather than upsetting the balance of the squad and changing the tactic completely, but those little changes in there, I think would completely transform not so much the formation, but how we play. Different problems for the opposition to think about. All right, and then strikers we've already spoke about briefly. It has to be obviously Harry Kane, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's gone off the boil over the last few weeks, but I think that's also down to Everton's kind of inconsistent form. I do think if Harry Kane got injured, having him up there leading the line, he has done quite well for England, working channels, a nightmare to defenders, crosses in the box as well. I think he would be an option chasing a game. I don't think at any point you're going to take off Harry Kane, but having someone up there who can work the lines, help Harry Kane out, headers, crosses coming from deep, maybe from a Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right, anything, I think he's key. That Danny Ings, Patrick Bamford, I do think would find himself very unlucky not to be. I don't even think he's been mentioned in the 33 or whatever that Gareth's picked today. So he'll no doubt be disappointed. Leeds fans will be crying, saying getting him in, but it's just options, and I'm thinking about at what point would I put a Patrick Bamford on? I wouldn't necessarily put him ahead of a Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I definitely wouldn't put him up there with a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, a Harry Kane. You're not going to take a Harry Kane off. I do think substitutions are going to be in the other areas, the midfield areas, maybe a Trent Alexander-Arnold coming on at right back. So that's why I've only gone with 2 strikers. Also, Mason Greenwood can play up there if need be, Marcus Rashford. So if there's a complete meltdown in injuries, Raheem Sterling's played as a false 9, Phil Foden's played as a false 9, so things could work. I do think taking a Watkins and Ings and a Bamford would be pretty much a waste of a pick. I don't really see them contributing to the squad in terms of minutes on the pitch. So that's my 23. The 3 wildcards I've gone for is the first one. We're going to start with the centre-half that I mentioned, and it's Ben White. Had a really good season at Brighton. They've done very well defensively. I think it's important to look at players who are potentially in form and then a potential to move on. We're talking another season of him in the Premier League. Him and Tomorry, if Tomorry signs full-time at AC Milan, another season with them would be good. And then Ben White has been outstanding. Ball-playing centre-half, has had a really good season in a defensively good Brighton as well. So I think that's helped. Connor Cody struggled this season, I think. Mings has been inconsistent. Ben Godfrey would have been a good shout. I think he's only missed out narrowly. I would have probably picked him above Michael Keane, who's also been very inconsistent. And I kind of think Michael Keane's had his time at England. He's played a lot of games that haven't mattered a great deal. So it'd be good to see, getting a Ben White in and amongst the squad. Definitely an England centre-half in the future. Looking at Ben White and maybe Tomorry long-term once Stones and Maguire get past their peak. All right, so there is my first one. The second one is Jude Bellingham. Even though he's 17 years old, I do think physically he can handle playing in it. He could have quite easily made the 23, I think, if Phillips wasn't available. I have no issues of putting him in. He can very much do it all in there. Maybe not so much of a sitter, but as a box-to-box, a Mazzala. Sensational in the double game against Manchester City. I think that sprung into everyone's mind just how good he actually is. So he would be my second pick. And my third and final wildcard pick would be Aaron Wambasaka. Now, I've tried to think of, not a controversial one, but a different option. And these are the reasons why. So, just for whatever reason, say, we're playing in the latter stages of the competition and Kyle Walker picks up an injury. I do think maybe playing Trent coming on when we're having to defend a lead, or if we go into a back 3 and we need to put another, and Kyle Walker maybe needs to move to centre half for whatever reason, maybe not putting Trent on in a game where we're under the cosh a little bit, he's playing up against a Sane or a Bernardo Silva or Ronaldo or a Jota or somebody, I would fancy having Aaron Wambasaka just in there to do a job. Now, obviously, I think if I was picking my starting 11 against Scotland and Czech Republic, and if they're going to play quite a low block, Trent would be my choice. So it's not so much that I don't think Trent can do it defensively. I just think if you're wanting a man to do a job and thinking of scenarios that might come up, left-hand side's not a problem. Ben Chilwell and both Luke Shaw are decent defenders. I just think that's... Obviously, we know Trent's struggles over the past 12 months in that position. And I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka as an option to come in and defend 10 minutes. Kyle Walker's maybe run around after Kylian Mbappe for 80 minutes. He needs a little bit of a break. He's absolutely knackered. Putting Aaron Wan-Bissaka on to do a job on that right-hand side, I don't think it's a bad call-up. Looking at other players, as I said, strikers, I wasn't interested in taking a Danny Ings. I don't think at any point I would look at the bench and think, right, I need to change it. I'm going to put Danny Ings on. I don't think that would ever enter my head. So that's why I've gone with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. All right, there's my 26. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, let me know your starting 11. What changes would you make? Let me know. There's a lot, Eric Dyer's a question mark. Not a lot of people. I think Calvin Phillips splits opinions. The strikers as well. I imagine some of you will want to see Patchett taking 3 strikers with Bamford and Danny Ings or Watkins getting a look in. Let me know all of it down below. Thank you very much for watching. And we will see you at the weekend when I pick my Premier League team of the season. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you later.